All right, 2-point perspective, let's talk about it. So kind of like 1-point perspective, 2-point perspective is now where you have a horizon line and you have 2 vanishing points on that horizon line. You will need a ruler for this one, and you can use a pencil or a marker. I'm going to start by making my horizon line and then put 2 dots on either side of the horizon line. Then step 1 says I'm going to draw a few lines either above or below the horizon line, vertical lines. They can even touch the horizon line too, that's fine. Next, you're going to take the top and bottom points of each of these vertical little lines, and they're going to go into both points on the horizon line, both vanishing points, not just one. 1-point perspective, you only went to one vanishing point. That was looking at objects from the top down. This one is looking at objects from all sides. So I'm going to take my ruler, start with the first line, first point, go to the first vanishing point, second point, go to the first vanishing point. Now I repeat that for this vanishing point. So the top point, vanishing point, bottom point, vanishing point. Use a ruler for this. Okay, step 1 and step 2 are done. Step 3 now. You're now going to make a few more vertical lines on each of these sections that went to the vanishing point. So it can be anywhere. If you make your line farther away from your original line, it will make a bigger shape. If it's closer, it will make a smaller shape. So I will show you how to make kind of a big shape. So vertical line on this section and this section, vertical line. These are both parallel to this line. See how they're in the same direction. I'm going to do the same thing for this section. Now the very last thing to do here before it looks like this is you have to make one more line that goes now to each vanishing point from those vertical lines you just made. So this time you're going to go to the opposite vanishing point. Just the bottom of the line. You do not need to do the top of the line. Here's what it would look like if you did the top of the line. It would just make your object look see-through. So that's why you don't do the top of the line, because you want it to look like a solid object. So you do the opposite vanishing points. Now, if I was using a pencil, I would then erase every single line except for my 3 objects that I made, but I used a Sharpie. So I'm finished with this one. Again, normally I would erase this line, this line, this line, all those guidelines that helped me make them look like they were in the same perspective. All those would go away and it would just look like this. The next page is a principle of design. It's called emphasis. Principles of design are how you take different art elements and arrange them in a work of art. Emphasis means when you want something to stand out. You can do this with different types of art elements. So you're going to draw 6 different types of emphasis. The first type would be color emphasis. This would be if one thing is a different color from the rest of the picture, that one thing would stand out. Texture emphasis is very similar. It's different types of texture. This eye is very smooth in the middle, and then the rest of the picture is very bumpy. So the smooth eye part stands out the most because it's different from the rest. Size emphasis would be if you have many objects that are one size and one object that is a different size. That one object would stand out. Line emphasis, you can direct somebody's eye to something that you want to stand out if you use lines that go to that object. So this little white dot stands out the most because the lines are directing your eye to it. Placement or space means when one object is alone and there is a group of other objects, that one object would stand out the most because it's different. And then shape. The triangle stands out the most because it is a different shape from the circles. So draw each of those 6 different types of emphasis. You can copy the pictures that are above, or you can try your own. Next page, you're going to draw a picture that shows emphasis, your own picture. So this one is a bird, and it's in the middle of the paper. That's why it's standing out, but it's also the only shape of its kind. The rest of the background is flowers and stems. So it's standing out in 2 different ways. It's standing out by placement, and it's standing out because it's the only shape of its kind. So placement and shape. So you have to draw a picture that shows emphasis and then tell me what emphasis are you using in your drawing. Movement is another principle of design. Movement is how your eye goes through a work of art. So you're going to draw either a landscape or a seascape that has movement. So this one is a landscape, and it has movement because of all of the swirly lines in the sky. This is a seascape. It has movement because of the wave, the direction of the wave. Finally, proportion. Proportion is another principle of design. It's how you arrange objects to make them look realistic. It's how you make certain objects certain sizes to make them look realistic. So you're going to draw a face in the correct proportion. So here's how you normally would draw a face in correct proportion. If you're trying to stick with correct proportion, typically a normal face has same on both sides features, but then if you cut a line down the exact middle of the face, that's where most people's eyes will sit. Then if you cut this section right here in half again, that's where the nose would fit. Then if you cut this section right here in half again, that's where the mouth would sit. So you're going to try and draw a face using correct placement and size of face features. This proportion is different though. This is called exaggerated proportion. Sometimes an artist might want to draw proportion in not a realistic way, but in an unrealistic way, an exaggerated way. A lot of times you'll see this in cartoons. So you're going to draw a cartoon with 2 exaggerated proportions. So in this cartoon, her eyes are much bigger than it should be. So that is one way that they're exaggerating the person. And her arms and legs are much smaller than they should be. So that's another way. Final page is proportion again, but this is proportion of the body now. You kind of did this a little bit with your gesture drawing, but now you're going to actually try to draw a whole body of a person using proportion. So looking at this figure here, try and break up the body into sections that are equal. If you look at a whole body of a person, each of the sections, the head, the torso, the upper legs and the lower legs are the exact same width if you were to measure them out. So try and draw a person in correct proportion.